Hey, Lashpreneurs, we're going to talk about why you don't need a bigger space or a second location to build out a team, get started with building out a team, and still make big bucks. This was kind of generated from conversations I've had a lot over the past month about people who have built out a second location or who were building out a team and needed a bigger location or thought they needed a bigger location. They signed leases, got in over their heads, and I thought, you know what? Every time I do this exercise with my students about how you can maximize the amount of sales you do in your current space, they always have these major ahas. So if this is your first time joining me, my name is Tara Walsh. I am a business coach and strategist for beauty business owners, and I talk a lot about team building. So today we're going to talk about a team building tip on how you don't need a bigger space and you don't need a second location in order to really pump out a lot of cash. So we're going to do a little mathy math today. So don't worry, I've got some slides. So I'm going to pull those slides up right now. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, because I do repurpose this on the podcast, just know that you can follow along easily, plug in your own numbers as needed. So why is it we're talking about maximizing space? A lot of people think that, they have this 200 square foot space and there's just no way I can get another person in here. So I can't hire a team until I get into a bigger location. There's also something to be said about the ego that thinks, ooh, if I have a storefront location, then I've really made it. Yes, to a sense, that could be a external validation that you've been successful, but I can tell you from the students that I've been talking to over the last couple weeks and months that have gotten into a second location or that have expanded into a bigger location, we have to do a lot of troubleshooting to pull them back to actually focus on producing profits from one location and one team before we start having multiple locations. So that is where we're heading today. Let me just pull up the first slide. So I want you to think about possibilities, not your current circumstances, and also think about, is it even possible for me in my current location to be able to produce a lot of sales? So I'm giving some examples here. Let's say you have a 300 square foot space, okay? My first location was a 200 square foot space, and I easily could have gotten 3, maybe even 4 treatment tables in there. It would have staggered them. It wouldn't have been a private space. It was very open concept. However, that's okay. You can still make the experience great for clients and still be able to get a lot of people in there. So let's just say 300 square foot space, you can get about 3 treatment tables in there. Okay, so we have potential operating hours with a team. I'm not talking about you doing this. I would never have you work 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. If you're already doing that, then it's time to build out a team or raise your prices. But let's talk about potential when you've hired a team, you know how to do the hiring process, and you know how to get several team members in there. So let's say you're open 6 days a week. Why not? Take Sundays off, take Mondays off, whatever. 6 days a week, the business, not you, the business is open. And let's say it's 10 hours a day, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Again, we're not talking about you having to be there 24/7. We're talking about the potential that can be maximized, the potential sales to be maximized from your business. When you want to build out a team, we got to untangle and unmesh you being your business and start to look at how we outsource the sales generation to team members. All right, so we've got 60 hours of operations a week. So we're open 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And we have 3 treatment tables or 3 treatment rooms or whatever that configures to you to be generating sales. So we have about 180 hours a week of available for producing sales. Are we following me? Give me a little heart or like kind of a head nod if you are following where I'm at. Okay, so let's even just say, because again, I want to talk realistically. I don't want to paint this like, oh, you could be making $1 million in 300 square feet. You're not going to be busy, or your business is not going to be busy 100% of the time. So if I gave you the math on 180 hours, I think it would be overinflated in what's possible. So I'm going to be conservative in my estimates, and I'm just going to say, okay, out of 180 available sales hours, given the math we just went through, let's say 60% of the time, that is when a client is in there in each treatment table producing sales in the business. So about a little over half of the hours that you're open in a week are with paying clients. So again, I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic, conservative. I use we call this productivity rate. So you can look at your own rate. I say 80% of productivity. So if 80% of the hours you're available, you're with paying clients, you are fully booked. So if you only work 10 hours a week and 8 of those hours are spent with clients, you're actually fully booked. You can follow, increasing your hours, you can increase your prices. But again, I'm just going to go conservative for the purposes of this, because I don't want to put some some poppycock numbers in there that may not be realistic. So let's just say you have a team, they're available, your scheduled team is there for 180 hours. You could have a morning shift person who's there from 9 to 1, and then an evening shift person who's there from 1 to 8. Whatever that looks like for you, we're just going with it. That 60% of those available hours are with paying clients, so not even fully booked. So that gives us 108 hours of productivity a week. So 108 of the 180 available hours are generating sales. So once we've got that math figured out, now we want to times it by the average hourly sales. So think about it. If you're a lash artist, what is it that you charge for a classic hour-long fill, or what is an hour equivalent to in sales? For this example, I'm going to use $75 an hour. Those that are building out teams, I find at a minimum they're doing $75 an hour, but oftentimes they're doing $80 to $90 an hour average sale. Plug in your own numbers. So what that looks like if you times 108 productive hours, so hours that are spent with paying clients, times $75 for an average hourly sale, you can produce $8,100 a week in that 300 square foot space with those 3 treatment tables. Or it could be, if we look at a month, that's $32,400 a month, or $388,800 a year. And you didn't have to go get a bigger space. You didn't have to get a second location. You're doing almost $400,000 a year very conservatively when you've built out a team. Now, I'm not saying that's profit. I'm saying that's sales generated from a location. So here is what I want you to start to consider when you think I have to have a bigger space or I have to have a second location in order to maximize sales. When you have done this math, when you've made data-based decision making, your rent, your overhead has stayed the same as your sales have grown. So yes, you will have more expenses as far as labor, but for the most part, your overhead is staying the same. So anytime we get expenses to stay the same and our sales grow, that is generally making more profit. Where do you think your pay as the owner comes from when you start to remove yourself from being a sales generator? Comes from the profit. So anybody who has these ideals of like, I need a bigger space, I need a second location, how well are you paying yourself to begin with? Let's focus on prioritizing profitability in the business first before we start adding layers of complication and bigger things, because with bigger locations, second locations, bigger businesses comes bigger expenses. And I want to make sure that we have a blueprint first of profitability before we start adding layers of complexity. So when we're looking at moving to a larger location, keep in mind, oftentimes clients resist change. So even if you're 5 minutes down the road, some clients may not follow. So a lot of times with the belief is that if I want to add in a team, I need a bigger location because I only have one treatment bed in my salon suite or whatever it is. So I need to move. Well, if you do that before you've built out a client base or a team member, chances are some clients may not go with you, but now you have larger overhead. And so now you, being the only person who's producing sales, now has much higher costs, much higher expenses, but not more sales. In fact, maybe even less sales. So you're having to kind of catch up to try and just cover the new expenses of this larger location. You also may have build out costs. I see a lot of people going into debt and taking out significant loans of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to build out a space so that it works. It's like a blank canvas, but it's a storefront, but now they have to put up walls or partitions or flooring. And so they have all of this debt that they're now taking on. And let me be clear, and like I mentioned before, more square footage does not equal more sales. It equals higher overhead. And so until you have proof of concept in your current location, let's not be looking out there for what's bigger and better. Let's really maximize and produce what we can produce, what we have currently. Because if you're still taking clients, the higher the expenses, the more you're going to have to work or produce sales until you have a team that can help you do that. But when you get into the larger location and you have to cover your overhead, where is your time that is going to produce the team that's going to produce the results and the client experience that your business has become known for? You're going to do what I call the warm body hiring strategy, meaning that you're like, I desperately need somebody else producing sales. I just need somebody who has the most experience. Just get them in the door, pay them 50% and like hope that they figure it out because I'm so busy and I'm so stressed and life is so chaotic and there's all this pressure and the debt and the monthly payments that are weighing down on you. Why would we do this to ourselves? Yet it is done so commonly. So again, if you are still primarily the person producing sales in your business, please don't be adding on more expenses with bigger bigger things, bigger locations, second locations, until we have team members who are producing results and experiences like you can, so that we can start to remove you from the business or from the sales generating, and you can run the business and really look at profitability and what you can afford in a location. Let's also look at a second location, oh no, my slides aren't pulling up. Give me 1 second. There we go. When you get a second location, and this is actually something that I'm working with on 2 of my mastermind members. We have a mastermind for those that have built out teams. You are doubling your rent costs. So your overhead is now double. You have 2 internets. You have 2 water, gas, trash, utilities, 2 phone lines. You have 2 marketing platforms because you have 2 different locations. So one may be 15 minutes away from the other, and we may not be able to market to the same audience because they're in different neighborhoods. We have 2 teams to oversee. We're talking sales generators, maybe even receptionists, maybe even assistant managers, hopefully, because who's going to be overseeing one salon while you're over here? We have 2 inventories, so we have to have stock and supply double, not just in one location, but 2 separate inventories of lashes and glue and products and retail. We have 2 sets of furnishings, so we have double the amount of beds and lobby and reception desk and chairs and lights. We have 2 client bases, right? So we have 2 different email lists or 2 different client bases that we have to communicate and have all these processes to manage that many clients. And when you haven't had a blueprint of what works for one location that we're just copying and pasting in another, there's not 2 of you to go around. And this is what I'm seeing. I'm so sorry you're stressed thinking about it, but good. Let's just focus on making you money rather than creating more stress. If there's not 2 of you to be in 2 separate locations, which if you figured out how to do that, I'm a single mom. I could use your advice on how you do that, because I can't reproduce myself in 2 different locations. God, it would be so much easier if I could. What generally ends up happening when 2 locations are created before one has profitability that we are just copying and pasting into a second location is one location does really well because that's what's getting the attention. The second one is the one that you're dragging through the mud that is actually costing the first location that is profitable. All that profit is going into that second location to cover overhead. And it is this 1,000-pound gorilla on your back that just, sometimes you don't even want to go over there because you're like, it's got so many problems and this location is doing great, but yet you're committed to like a 3 to 5 year lease and it's just so heavy to go over there. I don't want that for you. It doesn't have to be that way. And so this is why I let's look at generating as much sales, but even more so as much profit from your current location before we ever look at a second location or a larger location, because you can do a lot in just one location, even if it's only a couple hundred square feet. Because look at it, think about it this way. Even if you only had 1 treatment table and that's all you have right now, and you're thinking about hiring on your first team member, that first team member can come in when you are no longer with clients and take clients during that time frame as an option. Alternatively, they could be there watching you with your clients while you're training them to do things your way. And then when it comes to, if you want to work 3 days a week, you have them on for 4 days a week, or you're there in the mornings, they're in the evenings. Now, I don't always recommend, especially with a new team member, that they be there by themselves for the first couple months until that trust is established. But with 1 treatment table, you could definitely cross 6 figures, maybe even more, where you're not the only one producing sales. Once we've done that, hold on, I've got a slide for this, pulling up the next one. Once we have the blueprint of what works on a small scale, then we can start to scale that. Then we have cash flow coming in that's no longer just on your back to be able to produce sales that we can then look at what can we afford in the second location or in a bigger location now that it's not solely dependent on you producing the sales. So that's all I wanted to share today, because I keep getting these calls and these questions from my students that have gotten into a second location or went too quickly into a larger location. And now we're having to backtrack and actually turn one location into basically a booth rent business model so that their attention can go back to the first location to build out a profitable team. So if you guys want to talk about building out a team, or you've already built out a team, but these struggles are resonating with you, DM me, #build-a-team, and let's talk about the challenges you're facing with the team. I have plenty of programs to help, but I also can help you just on a couple of quick things, because chances are there's 1 or 2 little tweaks that we can make for you to start to see that building out a team can be very rewarding. It can be very profitable, but it's not often done well. And it's often done illegally in our industry for the most part because of Don't ask me why. Don't get me started. That's a whole other rant some other day. But I would love to be able to help you build out a team so that you can stop trading your time for money and really start to enjoy your business by making data-based decisions, because that's really what's freed me up in my business to enjoy running a business, building out a team, and then being able to serve you guys. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Have a good one.